structure and flexibility. The RP Diet app builds a structure of eating that creates the results you're looking for, but has the flexibility to let you scan your favorite foods and follow your preferred diet philosophy. The digital diet coach in your pocket is more powerful than ever, so let's build a better you with the RP Diet app.
Folks, welcome back. Weekly webinar. It's Dr. James and Dr. Mike. We're here to answer your questions. Like always, let's get it going.
All right. Jordan Tanev says, hey, Doc, 2 quick questions for you. Number 1, I'm currently massing and have a certain weekly average body weight % of weight gain that I'm after. In a 5+1 weeks meso, so that means 5 accumulation, 1 deload, what would be better, a slightly overshoot the target at the end of week 5 and let the weight naturally fall off a bit during the deload, lighter training, less carbs, or nail the target at the end of week 5 and keep it there during a deload? I honestly cannot, with all of my expertise, tell you which one is better. I also think there's a precision problem where you're not even going to be able to figure out which one of those it is because the water weight fluctuations during deload are going to be so wild. But I think both are very much right there. What I wouldn't want you to do is undershoot it and then try to eat up more during the deload. That would not be a great idea, but I think that either one of those is totally fine. James, can you parse them?
Yeah, so I'm wondering if he's talking because he's worried about like it's normal for your weight to kind of drop off a little bit when you kind of de-bloat and de-pump on deload. So yeah, that would be something I wouldn't necessarily try to factor in. I would just
to mitigate because it's just water weight anyway. It's
yes, like exactly. So you have like the problem where if you're trying to accommodate that, then you could be leaving gains on the table potentially just because you're going unnecessarily conservative because you're thinking like, you know. So I would say just don't bother worrying about that too much.
Yeah. Purely theoretical question number 2. I try to keep my rest periods between sets the same and follow the 4 questions about recovery that RP suggests. Okay, well, you can't actually keep both of them the same and follow the 4-question recovery because that's going to necessarily lead to different rest periods between sets. But we'll get to that in a second. Provided I have the time to waste, would it be beneficial to extend rest periods as the training gets harder with the progression of the meso in order to hit their desired reps with a prescribed RAR without the usual fall off? Would this increased volume have the same net effect compared to the usual lower but sort of harder volume? Basically, if it is something like the more you rest, the more volume you need and everything else equals out after all. No, not really. I think that when you are going super hard, then, you know, your central drive for every set is going to be really hard and your fatigue systemic is going to be harder and your ability to recruit local muscles is going to be tougher and tougher. What we definitely would never want is for you to rest shorter and shorter between sets as your mesocycle progresses because then things get harder and you take less rest. Ideally, you just use the 4-question paradigm, and that will naturally lead you to rest a little longer if the sets are getting closer and closer to 0 RIR. But if you have the time to rest, I think James and I are pretty unanimous that unless you're taking 5 hours per workout, erring on the side of resting a little longer between sets is almost always better from a maximum hypertrophy standpoint than resting a little shorter, as long as you're still going to the RIR you want.
Yeah, and I think in this case too, like consistency is again like greater than accuracy. Like whatever system you're using, whether you're using the RP questionnaire or whether you're saying for this exercise I wait till I catch my breath, or you just say okay for lateral raises it's 1.5 minutes, that's it. Whatever you do, just keep doing it. Where you get into problems is where you start switching things up midway through or towards the end of a mesocycle just because it's getting harder and you say, oh, I want to accommodate it getting harder and now I'm going to change up my rest times. That just adds too much variability and too many problems for tracking. So I can see Mike.
Yeah, because you gave me
I saw him doing the evil hands.
That's an excellent. So I'm just going to jump right. This is why we're webinar partners, James. You and I shoot ideas off each other. So here's an example of exactly what James is referring to going pretty poorly. If you start to expand your rest times between sets as the mesocycle progresses, like James said, basically arbitrarily, there's a problem for MRV tracking and MRV detection. So like you let's say last week your sets were 10, 8, 7. This week it's up by a little bit of weight and your sets are 10, 9, 8 or 10, 8, 7 again, but you rested a minute longer between sets. So the real question is, what would it have been if you rested the same amount of time? And the answer to that is like, maybe much less. Well, then maybe your peak set, which is the most important thing for MRV detection, your top set, maybe it would have been the same. But like if your top set is barely 10, you just get it in, but then you crash right after that, man, I'm starting to suspect you're real close to MRV, if not already exceeding it. So I think if you really cut yourself more slack as the program progresses, you could actually exceed MRV for maybe half a week or a week longer than you would be able to detect because you're cutting yourself more slack. Now, the best solution to this problem is the auto-regulated thing, where you just go when you feel like you're ready with the 4-step paradigm. And that one's great because the paradigm's the same every time. MRV will hit you in the face sooner or later, especially, and like this is something we're writing into the book, caveated, and this is, I think, this one of these things is classified as wisdom instead of knowledge. Like over time, James and I have tried to figure out how to scientifically state this, but we end up stating very plainly in the book, if you have to cut yourself, so you use the 4-question paradigm every single time, instead of like programming like 1 minute rest, 1 minute rest, 1 minute rest. So sometimes it will float up just because the sets get harder. But how do you know that you're not just cheating yourself? Here's the wisdom. Because you know you're resting longer just because you're like, okay, in order to hit 8 reps, I got to get another 30 seconds. There's no way I'm going to be able to do it. You already hit your MRV and you know it. Like you should be able to honestly just be like, all right, I'm ready to go. And then you hit it and it's 6 instead of 8 reps. That's it. You're over MRV. It's fine. Right. But if you're like, if you look at the 8 reps and you're like, no, I'm going to rest an extra 5 minutes in order to just get, like, you're already lying to yourself and you know you're doing it. So don't do that. So just honestly follow the 4-question paradigm and then let MRV come out of it. But if you increase the time as the sets get harder, that's a possibility. Just be careful that you're not cheating your MRV on that.
Very good. So, like, Dr. Mike, I can't help but notice do you have a wearable on? What's going on with that? It looks like on
Don't
your.
worry about it. It tells me when to masturbate.
Oh,
do it now.
Do it now.
Where's Marcos? The Marcos Arnold videos just blew my mind completely.
Dude, that was so good.
It also is completely on the spot. Like, and also, it doesn't matter what Arnold really said to those donkeys. It couldn't have been anything less ridiculous than what Marcos said.
Exactly.
So, what's it called? It's actually, Charlie got it for me. It's a not heart rate monitor. What the fuck is this? Step counter. So I've started step counting instead of, because especially with COVID-19 or whatever, I can't go to the gym to do cardio. So I'm like, well, that's out. So I'm just counting steps because I was going to do like a certain amount of cardio per minute, but then like, that really doesn't integrate NEAT whatsoever. Like step counting is amazing because it auto integrates your NEAT. And I was using my phone, but like the phone isn't always in my pocket. And you start worrying, like, should I put my phone in my pocket all the time? It's fucking stupid. So I got this thing and its battery life is like 5 days or something. And it's super easy to recharge. And it just every day it resets and just fucking tells you how many steps you are. So I have a minimum goal step count for every day of this fat loss phase. And I just hit that. And then I'm super breathing easy. And also it's one of these things where it's like, like, if you really mind fuck yourself on a cut, you're like, okay, I went shopping today. I went for a walk with my wife. I did this and that, but I also have to do 30 minutes of cardio because it says 30 minutes of cardio. Like, but doesn't that somehow integrate? Or am I being a pussy for trying to count that? Or am I just being unscientific for not? All that shit goes out the window. This counts everything. So I like look at how many I have at 6 p.m. and I'm like, okay, I'm going for a 30-minute walk. I do it. It hits that number, whatever, 10,000 steps. And then I'm fucking golden. I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's like, it tracks everything. So it's a real beautiful thing. It's like having the equivalent of like a calorie counter for your food, like right on your hand. You're like, well, I know what's going on. There's no mystery.
At the end of the day, are you ever like, oh, I'm like 20 steps short? Like, all right, I'm good.
So the funny thing is they're getting really, Crystal's like, what are you doing? Shut up.
I'm getting my steps.
So the funny thing is they're really advanced. They have a really complex algorithm for which they look at your, so basically if you do 5 steps and you stop and you look at it, it doesn't say anything. It takes a couple of seconds to analyze that data, which is insane, right? So what it actually looks for is a combination of things from what I understand, but a lot of what it looks for is, like when you step, you have a ground contact thing. That's actually what it's looking for. So doing this doesn't have that pulse contact. It has the wave-like contact, so it doesn't actually register. And these advanced ones, I've been doing this, it's still 312. Still 312. It doesn't believe you because it used to be the old algorithms and the ones they put into phones. Like any movement, it'll be like, you're walking. And Jared was like, yeah, I texted a long time ago for a while, and it would just say that I've done like an hour of cardio. It's clearly not the case. But nowadays, like, I can't fuck with this thing, man. It just doesn't fucking believe me unless I'm actually walking, which is really sweet. So
that is sweet. I'm sure we're gonna get a whole bunch of questions next time after you
for real. God damn it.
No, it sounds like it's really useful for you, so people will be interested.
Awesome. It's awesome. All right. So Ashley Hartman says a question that we're going to try to help her with as much as possible, but we have to sort of caveat that we have no idea what the fuck we're talking about. She says, hello, Dr. Mike and Dr. James. Just wondering if either of you have experienced any nerve damage in the past or could offer any insights on the topic, specifically with regards to loss of strength and muscle atrophy. I'm a 38-year-old female trying to recover from radial nerve damage. I have had pain here and there over the past 10 years in my neck, trap, and elbow and tricep, neck, trap, elbow, and tricep, but it was always short-lived and went away within a few days. I have lifted bodybuilding style 20 years on and off, competed in BJJ and MMA, and overall very active. So though thought it was just wear and tear. I had no idea it was a nerve issue, but I'm beginning to think it was. A month and a half ago, I woke up with severe pain throughout my left arm and numbness in my thumb and index finger. I could not do a single push-up. Now, a month and a half later, I still have numbness in my index finger as well as muscle atrophy and weakness in my left pec and tricep. I let it heal until the pain went away, and I've been training to gain back size and strength. I can now press 25-pound dumbbells for 12 reps at about 2 RIR, but reps in reserve is hard to tell because it takes a serious amount of mind-muscle focus to do any reps at all. If I'm not completely focused, my muscle gives out, the weight literally drops. Question, do you think training all rep ranges would be beneficial? Would you recommend targeting specific fibers? Any other thoughts, advice would be greatly appreciated.
Let me just, I'm going to cut that one off. This has nothing to do with rep ranges or fibers type or anything like that. This is one of those where like you have a physical, probably have some kind of impingement in your neck, which is causing like a downstream nerve problem to your arm and your chest. That's my guess. I'm not a fucking PT, but what I would say is like, don't think of this in terms of like, should I be doing 20 to 30 or 10 to 20 like that? No, that's completely just, you need to go see a physical therapist and they need to identify, because it sounds like you have something physically wrong with you. You know what I mean? There's literally probably some kind of impingement going on, which is not allowing for the proper conduction of your central activation of your muscles, which is why it's causing it to atrophy. So I would see it, a neuroscientist, a PT, any of those as soon as possible, because you might have some pretty big underlying conditions there.
Yeah, 100%. Best of luck to you. I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, I wish we could give you advice like that, but it's just not that advice is not appropriate, unfortunately.
Yeah. Jackson Brim says, hi, Dr. James and Mike. I'm currently engaging in concurrent training for the mile and powerlifting. I've listened to your previous advice for another member who asked. Yeah, fuck yeah, that was great. Good advice. Great questions.
Someone else is doing this? Didn't we talk about how like no one else cares about the mile and now someone else is doing exactly this? Jeez.
I have a few questions I couldn't really find research about. Number one, how should weight gain/loss be structured for concurrent training? I assume there is no weight to speed paradigm, so it would make sense. Oh, sorry. I assume there is a weight to speed paradigm, so it makes sense to mass far away from my testing dates and then do a small cut. If so, how would you handle the subsequent need to reduce weight without affecting performance during my strength/higher intensity running phase?
Yeah, so I would treat this the same way that you would treat the way that we would do any kind of body composition alterations for sport. So basically you have kind of your general preparatory phases, your specific preparatory phases. And usually what we say is you should be at or within about 2% of your goal competition body weight by the time your general preparatory training has ended. And as you move into your specific preparatory training, meaning like your more sports specific stuff, you should be basically pretty close to your ideal competition body weight, and you are no longer doing body composition alterations. So for most people, that will mean somewhere around 2 to 3 months out from whatever event or competition that you're doing, that you are now in an isocaloric state and no longer doing any type of body composition alteration, either, with weight training or cardio or both. So at some point, you would be doing a cut or a mass, and you'd be doing your high volume lifting, and you would still be doing some high volume cardio stuff as well, and you'd be running your cut or mass, whatever it was. And then you'd hit a point where you say, okay, I got my comp coming up maybe 3 months from now, and I need to switch to more sports specific training for whatever that comp is, whether it's powerlifting or, doing a mile run test or whatever that is. And you'd make a distinct switch to training for your sport. And at that point you would stop cutting, because if you're trying to cut or mass at that point, it becomes increasingly disruptive.
Yeah, great answer. Next question is, as someone who is likely a more type 2 phenotype, I assume faster twitch fiber, I struggle with longer training intensities that is required for building VO2. I assume since this is partially a fiber issue, if I really want to improve this, I would need to put my lifting on the back burner, potentially transition some fibers to type 1. This would be a good idea if I'm currently happy with my powerlifting performance. So lifting transitions your fibers to type 1 anyway.
Yep.
But what was really another way to phrase this to get actually the same answer you were hinting at is you just probably need to do more running and less lifting because lifting is already something you're pretty satisfied with and running is not remotely. So you should pare down how much lifting you're doing as far as fraction of volume of your total workouts per week and pair up the amount of endurance work you're doing and run that for several weeks, several months, and see how it affects your lifting and running, and go from there to reevaluate. But yes, for sure, you need to do more endurance and less lifting if this is really what you want. But the fiber transition issue is not really the issue at play.
Yeah, and you're going to, and whatever genetic predisposition you have is not going to change. What will change are some of the intermediate fibers, the ones that are a little bit more fluid. So you're not going to see like a really big, like physiological shift in your muscle characteristics, right? Just like a slight one from training.
Yeah. This is a cool question. Number 3, not really related, but I'm we're not going to answer it. Okay. I'm just kidding. Not really related, but I'm currently working in a muscle phys lab and plan on going to medical school after I graduate. That's really good. Would you like to see a better integration of physicians in the health and wellness community? How would you work to bridge the gap? So here's
this came up last week too, I think.
Mm-hmm. Here's my personal thought. Just thought about it for a few seconds here, and here's what I actually would like to see. Caveat: I think some people who really like this huge integration between fitness professionals and physicians are really not overstepping their bounds, but like, we have specialization in trade for a reason. Like physicians are not fitness and health professionals. It's not. What I would like to see is more of a unanimity on so when physicians tell you you need to get a certain drug and they write you a script, they understand that pharmacists are also professionals, and there's a rough unanimity of opinion in pharmacists, and they'll go and you get the right prescription and you get it, no problem. If doctors say you need to go to a podiatrist, you need to go to get your massage therapist, they sort of know how that works and know who to refer you to. I would like to see something with diet and training where the average person graduating medical school knows that correct dieting looks like insert what we described in the RP Diet for Health book. Okay, like calorie control, but fundamentally healthy foods, what that means, how to weave people in, and potentially pointing people to some resources, not necessarily our book, but like some sort of like sending people over to, here, I'll name a competitor, Precision Nutrition. Be like, hey, look into this. They know what they're doing. Because most of the doctors say like, well, you need to just eat less, or you need to control your calories. People have no idea what the fuck that means. Like, it's not like they don't say like, well, you need to be getting a massage. Be like what kind of massage? They refer you to a proper sports massage if they need you to get a massage. They're not just going to be like, well, just go, guy. I don't know, go get whatever. Go get acupuncture. Like, well, it's not really a massage. Like, well, it's not really my problem, right? And then on the training side, I think people who are becoming doctors should know what proper health promoting training looks like. Essentially high volume, low rest, resistance training through a full range of motion paired with as much physical activity and other cardio as you can do. Because right now people say like, oh, like my doctor said I should exercise more, be more active. They don't even know if that's like, should I walk the dog? Should I do P90X? There's never a thing given. So I want doctors to do 2 things: theoretically know what the right answers are in a very general sense, and 2, have just outlets or sources to refer people to.
Yes.
To be like, here's where you go. Like one for supplements, for example. And this is just a third point, but very, very unrelated. Supplements are minor importance, but I would love it if like almost every doctor in the United States or the world knew about examine.com. And when somebody be like, hey, should I take these supplements? The doctor would be like, you know what? That's not my area, especially, but here's this website. Here's examine.com. They're just going to tell you what's going on. I wish we had the doctors knew enough, because right now, like, and this is something James and I run into on these Q&As a lot, and run into a lot when we coach clients, is people say like, well, so my doctor, my mom has heart disease and my doctor recommended she start the paleo diet. And it's like, for the fucking love of God, like you're recommending some weird branded diet, or like even worse. Remember, James, last time there's like the doctor recommended essentially carnivore diet, and it was kind of
yes,
like
that's right.
Stop eating everything but meat. It's like, your doctor shouldn't be saying shit like that, man. It's just like, when James and I suspect a client of ours has high blood pressure, we don't say, hey, like, here's the medication you should start taking. That's equivalent of what the doctor's saying. We say, hey, you might have chronic high blood pressures. Go look to make sure the doctor like confirms that. And then the doctor will tell you what you should be taking. But I know there's this class of drugs that reduce blood pressure. I have no idea which one's the best. So that's what that is. James, what do you think?
Yeah, I largely agree. And I think that people should stay in their lane, but have resources to outsource these things. And that's kind of like the roles that, like we play. So we're fitness professionals. Like, can you imagine if they were like, all right, you're going to try and get your PhD in sport physiology and get an MD at the same time? What does that mean? That means Mike and I are going to be shit doctors and shit sport physiologists, right? We would be specialists in nothing. We will have just a bunch of very broad, generalizable knowledge that can't help anyone. So what I would like to see is very much what Dr. Mike described, which is let doctors stay in their lane. They have a basic understanding of like, okay, here's like kind of fundamental things that we need to know about diet and exercise, but let's find some reputable resources where we can send people and say, hey, I don't know enough about this, but I can at least point you in the right direction. And it would be nice if, the healthcare system would allow for those type of some kind of integration there where it wasn't just like, okay, go see this like dildo personal training guy. Here's like a reputable source.
Yeah.
Here's like something that you can integrate with your health plan and it doesn't cost you like a ridiculous amount of money. That would be cool. I don't know if that will ever be possible. Obviously it's a very idealized scenario, but that would be what I would want to see is like stay in your lane, have specialists and have a system to get the individual from one specialist to the other specialist in a fairly seamless way.
Yeah. All right. In runs, Ansh. Hey docs, hope you're doing well. Wrapping up this cut, legitimately went super smoothly, man. That's really great to hear.
Good.
Pretty much lost 10% body weight with no issues at all. 1 calorie adjustment total. Wow. Way to guess it right.
That's
very
solid.
minimal hunger issues. Just like everything else, seems like practice makes perfect with dieting. Yeah, it definitely helps. To bring up an earlier question, I think I'm going to try out a peaking plan at the end of this cut just to get some data for later on. I was thinking of following the peaking guide and the mini cut manual for the TIA mini cuts, temporarily improved appearance.
You're talking about for like a physique peaking protocol?
Yeah, I think
okay.
Don't want to go post the plan here, but basically seems like a pretty simple carb backload with very little to no sodium/water manipulation. Do you guys have any other simple things I should keep in my mind? I'm not trying to do anything super complicated, especially since I'm not peaking for any specific event, but if there are any easier things I could implement down, I'll try them out. I would just say try to keep it as low stress as possible and get plenty of sleep during the whole process, and you look way better than if you freak out about if you're doing the right thing. So just try to shoot like a pretty decent, like don't be like, oh my God, like weighing everything out and measuring like salt and water. Just, just do a decent job, stay super relaxed, and then go get a good pump when you're at your peak. And make sure, here's another one, you're going to take some pictures, make sure there's some decent lighting or something you can replicate later, and don't just like let it go to waste. So.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I would say don't worry so much about getting it right. Focus on kind of what we would call in sport, like gaining competitive experience, right? Like going through the motions, understanding how it feels, understanding how things change, make some notes. But I guess the point being like, don't be hyper focused on like, do I need to get this exact amount of sodium or this exact amount of this, that. That's fine. It's something you can work on over time, but get the experience, get an understanding of how this process feels, and just have an appreciation for that. That's something that's very underrated.
Yeah. All right. Harrison Caton says, Dr. Micah James, based off of what you said about finding MRV for each body part in the hypertrophy training, what I came away with is that finding local MRV should come from training as you normally would train, not something set up in a way that would mesh normal training. Yep.
Yes.
And is that going to be found through the tracking rather than by pre-planning? Is that correct? Yeah, through tracking and auto-regulating to how much volume you need based on responses.
Yeah, the pre-planning is there just to kind of have like a roadmap, like an idea of like, this is where I'm going to start and where I think I'm going to end. But auto-regulation is really how you get to the end place.
Yep.
Those are just like planning is just having some rough numbers to serve as like a guideline or roadmap.
I have yet to read the How Much Should I Train book yet. Thankfully, I just made my last payment for college, so I should have some extra money to spend by next month, as well as some more time. That's really great.
Nice.
I recently did one of the at-home workouts over a video call with my girlfriend. I was able to coach technique and get her to push harder than what she was used to. What I found is that she is not very used to pushing very close to 1 or 0 RIR territory, but had been mostly doing workouts that were very moderate in intensity/RIR. In your experience, what has worked for you in teaching someone new to lifting how to push harder or go closer to failure? Well, so I will say we almost never teach people new to lifting that because technique is more important for them than doing that. And it's really a moot point for people close to failure.
Yes.
But we can tell you how we push other people closer to failure that are more intermediate. And then he says, for context, she was doing 45 reps per lift on the at-home program by only using 10-pound dumbbells. This included lower body movements too. When I did the video call workout, she had a lower body day, and so I told her to use the 25s that she owned. She was very much capable of doing 20 to 25 reps, and every exercise I'm probably going to push further too as form breakdown was negligible. So actually, I'll tell you this, man, the easiest way to teach, because you can yell at people all you want, but the best way to sort of engineer, and actually I just made a video that'll be coming on YouTube at some point in the next several weeks about this. It's a system that James and I a little bit just described last time, and I've actually noted it to myself, and then Scott, the video guy, and I recorded the video about it. It's the match or beat rep and weight system that we use, and we've never really formally talked about it because it's something that we just wanted people to get to organically and not overthink. But it's time to overthink, and it's a really simple system. Here's the deal: like if you think she's slacking off and she gets 30 reps on her lift with the 25-pound dumbbells on week 1, she does the 25s again. tell her that the expectation is that she gets at least 30 reps, but it's really, she should get like 31 or 32. And basically, like, you keep telling someone to do 1 or 2 more reps a week, or if the reps are stable when you're back in a real gym and you can add load, you put 5 pounds on the bar every week and you say, last week you did 10, this week you have to do 10. Next week you got to do 10 also on the first set. Eventually they will either drop off in reps or hit failure. Like, they have to, right? Unless you get stronger forever. So if you really said to them, like, because a lot of people who don't understand about going hard closer to failure, they really don't know their own limits of how much like will they can exert. But when you give them a distinct goal, they just attain it and they don't even know that how much willpower it takes. Like, do 10. And they're like, okay. Because you tell someone, do as many as you can. I mean, fuck, that's a soft ass target. But if you say do 10, they could do 10 easily, or it could be heaven and earth. And then they do 9, but on their way to 9, they actually fail. Congratulations, you found failure. So the best way I've seen in chasing failure is start with something short of failure over the weeks and weeks and weeks. Just do more and more and more, just by a little bit every time, whether it be weight or reps or both. And eventually, by having the goals, like, okay, today I will do 34 reps. And because I did 32 last time, I know I can do 34. And it might take everything to do 34, but then you'll be unable to do 35 and you'll be like, wow, holy shit, I really got to failure. But I thought failure was 28 weeks ago when it turns out it was 34. James?
Yeah, that's really good. When I was teaching at Temple, we had the strength conditioning laboratory, and one of the things that we did was some workouts, and I have the students coach each other through these workouts. And one of the activities once was doing reps in reserve and just kind of identifying how to program with reps in reserve. And all the students would always run into this problem where they would, it would be like, it was like dumbbell bench press 2 RIR. People would let them off soft. Like, they would have 2 people coaching them, and the one person lifting would, go like, oh, I did 10 reps. And then they'd rack it up and be like, yeah, that was 2 IR. And then I'd have to go over there and be like, did you think that was 2 IR? And the 2 that were supposed to be coaching would be like, no. So then you kind of have to like walk them through it and say, like, this is how it should look, right? Should see him struggling, should see him, straining a little bit, should slow down and see a lot of shaking. And so one of the things that we would do with the students and the person who was lifting was just kind of oversee them while they did it, and then say, like, and just not yell at them. I mean, it's kind of like cheesy motivational yelling and stuff, but yeah, saying like, okay, I think you got like 3 or 4 more. And they'd be like, no way, no way, no way. And you'd be like, keep going. It's okay. Keep going. And, don't worry about it. Just another one.
Yeah. That's a great strategy.
And it's hand holding. You're hand holding them a little bit. And then another thing that worked really well in the lab was I used to have an iPad. And so what we would do is I would just go around and record people, not like creepy Harvey Weinstein style, but I would have my iPad and I would record them, and they would do a set, and I would show it to them. And I'd be like, I don't think you were at 2 IR. And they'd be like, dude, Dr. Hoff, that was 2 IR. And then I would show them the video of them lifting, and it would be like squatting, like, and I'm done. Right. And then you're like, did that look like 2 IR? And having that immediate feedback where they could see their own set and assess it. And they go, oh yeah, I guess I didn't even strain or struggle at all. Just being able to visualize, seeing it after performing it really helped a lot of people, I found too. So sometimes having a means to play it back to show them what their effort looked like on the outside reaffirms that, yeah, what I'm doing is probably not the intensity that I think it is.
Yeah. Great insight. Lastly, when it comes to exercise and sports science / coaching, I feel like I know very little when I'm listening to you guys or people like Chad Wesley Smith or Max Ada. Yet when I talk to the average trainer at my gyms, I feel like I know quite a lot. When it comes to growing in education, what would you say is a healthy mindset to have about yourself, particularly as I'm looking to start personal training and market myself to be hired? What position on the know nothing or know a lot side should I take? Neither one. You should say, I know some things that can help people, and I think I can help you. And that's the way you should advertise yourself. Like, never advertise yourself as I know a ton of shit. Just say, yeah, like I know I have a skill set that can help. That's it. And you're not saying like better than everyone else or everyone else is dumb, or you're not going to say, I don't know anything, but I can maybe try to help you. Just say like, I have a skill set and I would like to help. And,
like Liam Neeson did on the phone that one time.
Yeah. I have a particular set of skills. My daughter. Yeah, you don't have to say like I'm like the top smart guy in the field. Like, fuck, Chad Wesley Smith, Max Eda don't say that. We don't fucking say that. We just say like, hey, like we might know some things. Tune in, and so let us know in the next webinar when you if you want to re-ask the question of maybe what you meant more specifically. But I feel like I've answered the question, but maybe you meant something else. James, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, just to support Mike's point. I think the idea is like, just be the best you, regardless of whoever else is in the field doing whatever they're doing, right? Like try and have like the knowledge that you think that you need to be a good coach, and then try to have like the social skills, coaching skills, to be a good coach and to be a supportive person and a good friend at times. And so just go from there. There's a bunch of great coaching resources out there. There's more than I can count. One that comes off the top of my head is Conscious Coaching. That's one I've recommended many times. It's a really good book. So you kind of have to strike the right balance of personality characteristics and knowledge and ability in the field, and find the right balance for yourself and just be the best you.
There's like just a quick microcosm of illustrating what I mean by this, using myself as the example of what not to do. Well, there's a lot of speculation like, oh, like the super smart guys in the field, like they know the most. Like, is it Eric Helms? Is it Mike Israetel? Is it Greg Nuckols? There's like 3 or 4 other people on that list that people like to, mentally jack off with. Then like, what do you think of guys like Ben Carpenter and Mike Samuels? You may have never heard of them. They're very big social media followings, and they're fucking excellent coaches, and they just fucking help people all the fucking time. They do great work. And like, I don't barely know these guys, but I know they're fucking awesome. Like, being one of those guys is way better than like, sort of like, cock jostling for like who's the smartest in the room. Nobody gives a fuck. Like, what are you making? How are you helping people? There's regular incels online that are smarter than Greg Nuckols and I'm sure. They can razz us every now and again, but they're fucking incels. We don't help anybody. They like don't even train. So good luck,
And,
like, don't be Lyle McDonald is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Also, to your point though, it's like, how smart do you have to be to help the overwhelming majority of people? Not very smart, right? The majority of people that need help with fitness don't need a fucking expert. They just need someone who can do a very reasonable job in very reasonable conditions. So like, I think what you said is very, very good right there, because you don't need to be the biggest brain. You just need to be willing to put yourself out there and help people and do a reasonable job. And if they reciprocate a reasonable effort, then they will do fine.
Yeah. Just to be clear, if you guys weren't reading between the lines, I do think that Lyle McDonald is way smarter than Greg Nuckols and I combined.
Oh, shit.
There's like Einstein. Talk about Einstein, Darwin, Lyle McDonald. Look up that name because you're going to remember it when it's plastered all over the walls in a 2050 dystopian future where he is the equivalent of Vandal Savage in charge.
Vandal Savage.
I want to live in a Vandal Savage dystopian future. I really do. I think he's great.
I like how there'll be like 3 other people listening to this like, oh yeah, got it. He's been sending, not Vandal Savage, Lyle has been sending Mel messages because he's like beefing he's been beefing on somebody, and like Mel seems to be in line with his position.
What?
Yeah. Hold on. Mel, that's true, right? Lyle was like sending you, like tagging you in some stuff.
Oh yeah, he was like really beefing with the guy who, like, some of the people fighting for the Game Changers ideas.
Oh, Game Changers
and
people?
So,
okay.
Like, after I wrote my thing, he was like, yeah, fucking take that. Like, argue this one point by point, asshole.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Hey, look, you're on Lyle's side. That means he's never going to turn against you. Wait, no, I said that wrong. He's going to turn against you as soon as possible.
You'll be the next one that he turns against,
Amazing.
basically.
I work hard for my results, and I need my diet dialed in. The RP Diet app tells me what to eat to keep me on track and offers suggestions for changes based on my responses, giving me the freedom to choose my path. A personal digital diet coach for less than $15 a month? Yeah, that works.
All right. Paul Desadelier. This is an awesome fucking name.
Yeah, it is a good one.
Pretty sure he's on that uranium dirigible, also smoking rolled up $100 bills.
I can't help but think his name means like the one who saddles horses.
Yeah, in like Dutch or some shit. Hey, docs. Number 1, how do you suggest adjusting a training session mid-meso after a bad sleep? Is it counterproductive to push for PRs after a night of 3 to 4 hours of sleep? Do you need to back off? I think I have 2 ideas, and I would like for James to let me know which one is wrong. James is the recovery expert. Idea 1 is just do your fucking best and don't really worry about what numbers you get as far as tracking your MRV. The next time you do that workout, like, just be like, oh, okay. Like, so basically, like, if you underperform, don't be like, that's it, that's MRV. Like, because you had bad sleep, just do your best, and you might have reps are off. You might, like, sort of come closer to failure, actually get to failure when you sort of weren't supposed to. but then you recover and you just keep going, and usually it'll be just fine. And then the other one is if you're really, really super tired and you really don't think you can even make a very good effort, then I would say it's time for a recovery session instead. And then when you get your shit together, get more sleep, then you can restart your program. James?
I think both of those are great. I think more often than not in these cases, you stay the course, like just do what you were going to do anyway. And if it happens to fall on a day where you were setting yourself up for like a really big peak week lift, like for squats, or maybe you're lifting for strength or for like weightlifting and you were trying to hit like a really big PR, this was like your day to do heavy singles, then if you know that that's just not going to happen, you can just push back a day or two, or like Mike suggested, to take a light session or a recovery session. Those are perfectly fine. But I would say more often than not, stay the course unless something presents you a reason not to. So you might actually get 3 or 4 hours of sleep and can come in and basically do a repeat of last week's workout just fine. Maybe you don't hit any PRs, but maybe you get the same lifts that you did last time, and that's fine. Might not be the best session of your life, but it's still, exactly. It's still a stimulus. So stay the course unless you have a good reason not to.
Yep. Number 2, how to incorporate road cycling 1 to 2 rides per week while minimizing negative impact on hypertrophy, 97% focus on bodybuilding. Better to ride hard for 30 minutes or leisurely rides for 1 to 2 hours? I'll tell you right now, the answer is leisurely ride for 1 to 2 hours. Where to place rides relative to like hypertrophy sessions? James, I would like for you to answer that one.
It depends on kind of how your thing is set up. So like if you're just taking like 1 to 2 rides per week and they're leisurely rides, goddamn, dude, like the only thing that would be bad was doing them right after you trained legs, like immediately after. That's
like right before would interfere. So I would say actually my best answer there is if you train legs twice a week, then you do the rides twice a week, but like in the midpoint. So like, let's say you train legs Monday and Thursday. I think like Wednesday morning, Wednesday midday would be good so that you're not training your shit right after you've trained legs, or like Tuesday evening to Wednesday morning would be best. You've had multiple hours and hours and hours to recover and put anabolic processes into motion. And then after the ride, you have multiple hours and hours and hours to recover on the fatigue side, and including under that, the glycogen side. And then that way it's not fucking you one way or the other.
I think stacking them up on the same day as your leg day is actually a good idea, so long as, like Mike said, you have time to rest, maybe have some meals, and just have a significant amount of time in between the lifting and the cardio session, because that way your legs actually get a distinct break. Whereas like if you do it on different days, then you're actually training your legs to some degree, almost every day, which becomes a bit of a problem. So you know what though, but if you're just doing it casually, my man, I wouldn't fuss too much. I think just like whatever fits your schedule. If you're just doing a couple rides per week and they're not terribly intense, I would say as long as it's not immediately after your leg training session, like immediately after, within like an hour after your training session, any other time's probably fine.
Yep. And it says when to ride during the meso, avoid riding during a final overreaching week. Certainly before. So you can ride during the final overreaching week, but I wouldn't ride before the workouts. I would ride after them. So like if you have 2 big leg workouts, Monday and Thursday in overreaching week, I would not train Monday through Thursday on your bike. I would ride on like a Saturday or something like that, like after that whole thing is over. And then it says when to ride during macro blocks, i.e. avoid riding during gaining phases. Definitely.
I mean, like if you're doing so little riding at that point,
for sure, it's not a huge deal. I would ride less during gaining phases. You can ride plenty during maintenance. That's a good time to ride a lot. And then during cutting, actually riding is great cardio. So I wouldn't sweat it too much. Just don't expect to make a ton of gains.
And a lot of this is kind of a wash if you are consistent and you auto-regulate on a needs basis. So like you could, my point would be like, you can make like within meso adjustments, but you also probably don't have to. You can just, if you always ride on the same days, your training will be adjusted accordingly. You auto-regulate from there. Good to go.
Yeah. Especially if it's like, so the real big factor here is if you're not progressing the riding, like if it's just an hour to 2 leisurely riding.
Right. Exactly.
Something
Yes.
to get used to, no problem. There's something you could call, like they've called it like stress training, where it's like, it's not progressive stress. But if it's like you're trying to periodize getting better at cycling, that's a wholly different ball game there.
Yes. Good point.
Carl VG says, hi, Dr. Isbell and Dr. Hoffman. Number 1, would using 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine regularly post-workout to drive glycogen replenishment potentially outweigh the detrimental effects caused by caffeine being a stimulant? I don't think it would outweigh them. I think post-workout caffeine is not a wise idea in almost any case.
completely agree. I really don't see any real benefit in doing that.
Number 2, if a smaller muscle such as biceps was trained Monday AM, Tuesday PM, Thursday AM, and Friday PM, would cardio Monday PM, okay, Monday PM, Tuesday AM, Thursday PM, or Friday AM impact recovery session to session in any meaningful way? Would it be better for bicep hypertrophy to do cardio at a separate time?
Depends on what you're doing for cardio. If it's like walking, it might be completely unimpactful. You know what I mean? It might have no impact at all. If you're doing like battling ropes, then yeah, there's something to talk about there. You know what I mean?
So this is strange
But-
because he asks, would it be better for bicep hypertrophy to do cardio at a separate time? But all of these are separate times as far as I can tell.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. Maybe next time, if you want to clarify that question, buddy, we can tackle it again. What I will tell you though is a lot of the interference effects they're not systemic effects; they're local effects, right? So if you are training your bicep, if your goal is to make the bicep bigger and you do cardio modalities that are heavily reliant on the biceps, then you're going to have some interference effects. If you're just doing like walking, running, cycling, you might have none outside of just being like a little more systemically fatigued. Other than that, there's not much to talk about. So maybe next time, if you want to clarify that number 2 for us, that might help, because I'm not quite understanding.
Number 3, from a stimulus to fatigue ratio perspective, what intensity/heart rate for brisk walking and possibly jogging will be best to maximize fitness in terms of cardiovascular health while minimizing systemic fatigue and leg fatigue?
This is a tough question because you can't maximize cardiovascular health, just
While
doing.
minimizing, yeah. I'm currently doing 2 sessions, 45 minutes to 90 minutes per week, depending on intensity, anywhere from 130 to 160. So actually 130 to 160 beats per minute is a very, very good zone. Closer to the 120 to 150, 120 to 140 is great fat burning cardio, and it gets you a little bit of cardiovascular stuff, but it's a very low fatigue. I would say there's a big jump in fatigue from jogging, from walking to jogging. Anytime you switch to jogging, fatigue skyrockets because it's an impact movement now. So I would stay away from jogging if you really wanted to be keen on fatigue. Also, I would recommend something like the elliptical, which is very low fatigue because it's not impactful, but you can actually crank away at it pretty good, and it distributes the work over your entire musculature of your body, which means it's locally not as fatiguing, sometimes even as walking is to your legs. So I would consider that as the best modality with a really good SFR. And I would say 120 to 160, 120 to 140. Anything north of 140 is going to get you much healthier cardiovascularly, but also cause you quite a bit of systemic fatigue. So the raw stimulus magnitude for health there is going to be higher by a long shot, but the fatigue will also be much higher. So if you really, really, really just don't want to stay into systemic fatigue, I think anything under 120 beats per minute, I mean, it does very, very low fatigue. It's great bodybuilding cardio, but it's not going to do a ton for cardiovascular health. So I would say 120 to 140. James?
Yeah, those are good recommendations. And the point was already made, so we're not going to beat the dead horse, but just to frame the question in your mind a little bit better next time, you can't maximize cardiovascular fitness while minimizing systemic fatigue or leg fatigue. It's just one of those diverging paths at some point.
Yeah, it's very diverging. And generally speaking, the things that maximize fitness the most also maximize fatigue. So a way to conceptualize it is the SFR scaled to intensity is pretty much a straight line. The SFR, yeah, it's a straight line with zero slope. So as stimulus goes up, fatigue also goes up linearly, which means the SFR is a zero slope straight line. It's not exactly zero because towards the end there, if you're doing repeat sprints, cardiovascular system is not doing the best workout and fatigue is really high. But anything up to a very, very fast jog essentially ramps up your cardiovascular health a ton and fatigues you a ton. So unless anything that is an endurance form of running, anything you can do for longer than 6 minutes and all the way shorter to anything you can do for 3 hours has a roughly equivalent stimulus to fatigue paradigm as far as I know on cardiovascular fitness. So another way to say that is what James says is, if you're asking what's got the best SFR, is it brisk walking or is it, endurance jogging? They have the same SFR, right? But just one of them gives you way more fitness and fatigue, and one gives you way less fitness and fatigue.
Yeah.
Number 4, he says, edit. I understand that supplements with, number 4 came later. Number 4, I understand that supplements with anti-inflammatory properties such as fish oil, multivitamins, certain minerals should be avoided peri-workout and a few hours post-workout when the goal is hypertrophy. What about cardiovascular training? Can these supplements affect adaptation to cardio? Yes, they can, and they have been demonstrated to do that. I will say it's in incredibly high doses, so it's nothing I would worry about in the short term, unless you're taking, like if you wake up and take your morning supplements or whatever, I would sort of do that maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes before cardio or not right after. But even still, like you have to eat a ton. A lot of the stuff comes with no practical insight whatsoever. I actually had my coach Broderick Chavez look up the data on this because I was eating post-workout sugary cereal, and all that sugary cereal, kid cereal, is fortified with vitamins and minerals. And I was like, dude, Broderick, I'm eating basically a box of that shit after my workout. Am I like in trouble for like shutting down anabolic pathways? He looked into the dose response literature and he's like, dude, you're like an order of magnitude off. Like you'd have to eat like 10 boxes of cereal to get enough vitamins and minerals. And the thing is, there's a shitload of vitamins and minerals in cereal. So unless you're like doing multiple pills of some shit or you mega dosing fish oil, I would really not worry about that kind of stuff. The way they do it in the training studies is they take some kind of vitamin or mineral, they give you a mega dose of it after or before training. So
yeah, and even just like the timing issue, it's such a minor thing. All I'm saying is like if you're like tiptoeing around your vitamin cabinet after your workout, like you could just take it whenever you want. It's whatever is easier for you to maintain a good schedule, and consistency is completely fine. Don't overthink this one.
Probably the best single point of actual real world advice from that whole vitamins and minerals and maybe maladaptive training is like, when like fitness people like to be like, here's my great post-workout or energy booster, post-cardio, pre-cardio shake. And they're like loaded up with as many fruits as possible because they have antioxidants. And they're like, yeah, sure, but don't do that. And because that is a good way to get a ton of vitamins and minerals that actually do affect hypertrophy. Is you smash like 8 kiwis into a fucking blender, and all of a sudden that's like an inordinate amount of vitamin E or whatever, some shit, right? And so like that's the way to do it that's wrong. So I think the biggest thing about that research is not that you should stay away from vitamins and minerals when you get freaked out about muscle growth. It's to not think that there's some kind of rabid potentiator of results, which if you really push the issue, they're an anti-potentiator of results. But if you just leave it alone, it's no big deal.
But at that point, you're abandoning all common sense and like general good practice, right, to do that. So like if you were doing the fruit one, for example, you probably stopped doing that because your butthole was like, I can't take this much fucking fruit at this point. Like you need to cool it on the fruit. You know what I mean? Like you would have to, it's like to elicit the effect that you're worried about would require you to do dumb things is what I'm trying to say. So I think Mike and I both agree. Don't worry about it too much. Yeah.
All right. Aaron A. May says, hey docs, I get so much value from both RP and your individual work. So I wanted to say thank you. I have a question about gaining entry into the field of strength and conditioning / sports science. I didn't graduate from undergrad with any exercise science classes or even anatomy or biology, just a lousy physics and math degree. Hey, that's not bad. I see both of your accolades in your career paths you have chosen, and I really want something similar for myself. You guys are probably the coolest thing to role models for me, even Mike and his Crocs. However, I don't know if spending the money on grad school is worth it, so I would like to hear your opinions. I see 2 options in front of me. Number 1, bite the bullet and go to grad school for an MS in exercise science and make up some prerequisite classes once I'm matriculated. Okay, that may or may not accept you. They may tell you to go fuck yourself until you have the prerequisites, but that's an option. With the goal of possibly eventually pursuing a PhD after that and seeing where things take me. Number 2, apply for
I would say you can probably
jobs
cross the PhD one off right away. Like if you're not sure about it, the answer is no.
Yeah. Number 2, apply for strength and conditioning intern jobs and hope I make a really good impression. Do you see any avenues for entering this field? I don't. I do, and I'm going to share one with you. Obviously, the big hurdle is that I have no prior experience, academically recognized courses. I have no idea how you're going to do a strength and conditioning internship without some kind of experience, but maybe there's opportunities. I am just systematically going through every video and book on RP. My dream is to do something like you guys and eventually work for a company like RP or be a strength and conditioning coach for collegiate pro team. By the way, that's 2 very different jobs. Any tips or insights would be appreciated. Thanks. Actually, I have a real cool insight for you. I think you should do some prerequisite courses. It's going to take you like maybe just a year at a class, and you could do many of these online, maybe perhaps all of them. And then I would apply to a master's degree in biomechanics because you already have physics and math, and you're going to breeze through that shit like fucking crazy. And biomechanics is a great field, tons of opportunities. And if you get into the right master's program in biomechanics, some of those folks work with athletes, and then you're well on your way to doing whatever you want. I just think you shouldn't really, if you have a lot of physics and math degree, I mean, for the love of God, biomechanics is right up your alley. I would 100% look into that shit, because most people are just not smart enough or educated in math and physics enough to do biomechanics. They get really intimidated, but you seem to be capable of that at a very high level. I would just look into that.
I think that's a really good suggestion. And actually, biomechanics, you might actually have an easier time getting into a biomechanics program than you would an exercise physiology program.
By a long shot, because they're going to see your background. They can be like, whoa, yeah, fuck yeah, I just need anatomy and a couple other things.
Yeah, that you might, exactly. They might be like, okay, you need a year of AP and maybe X-Phys class. Whereas like if you try to do X-Phys, they're going to be like, okay, you need motor learning, you need X-Phys, maybe a second level of X-Phys, and maybe this, a whole bunch of stuff. So I think that's a really good suggestion. And there's a lot of cool biomechanics opportunities now, especially with like how crazy things have gotten with 3D printing. Like there's really cool ergonomics options that people are pursuing. They're making fucking, like prosthetic limbs individually made for people. Like if you get your leg blown off, you can make somebody a customized orthotic or ergonomic thing. These are things that biomechanists are doing.
You were corrected both, by the way.
Was I? Okay.
Yeah, more or less.
I hate when people...
Ergonomic orthotic.
Ergonomic orthotic. There we go. I say dumb shit all the time. People love to point out on YouTube, like I will say something completely stupid, just idiotic on a lot of our videos, and somebody will be like, this is great, but at this point, at 1402, you said this. And I'm like, yeah, don't listen to me. I'm an idiot. But anyways, there's tons of really cool opportunities with biomech and technology is basically what I'm trying to get to. So I would think about like using your strengths, as Mike said, using something like biomechanics and seeing what you can do in the field there. Because I think trying to get into strength and conditioning at this point is going to be really tough. Strength and conditioning is one of those ones where it's that catch-22 where they're like, you need experience for this job, for like an entry-level job. And you're like, it's an entry-level job. This is how I gain experience. And they're like, you still need experience for this. And you're like, how do I get it? I don't know how to get experience. What do I do? Exactly. So that's a tough one in terms of exercise science and stuff. Yeah. So I think we beat that one to death, but I think
James, you said biomech and I immediately thought of mechs, and then I immediately thought of the Instagram advertised game called War Robots. Yes. And I was thinking, man, like how scary would it be if you like looked out of your living room and there was like mechs were fighting in the streets, like they're like the size of a 6-story house, and they're just like, it's just no longer human scale combat, it'd just be like, what are you going to do against one of those? Nothing. But then I thought another thing, that bipedal elevated war machines are highly inefficient and ridiculous and easy to shoot at. So they're never going to see them.
Dude, there's so many mech animes. It's not even funny.
That's like, but you can see it's such a like anthropomorphization thing. Like it's like, of course, like you can't relate to a swarm of nanobots. So of course, but that's really where warfare is going. You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna have like mech helicopters. Like if it was it Avatar was set in the year like 2040 or 2400. Like in 2400, they would drop like a sphere this big of an engineered virus into the fucking planet. Everyone would be dead 3 seconds later. It'd be like, see ya. Like get out of here.
Yeah. Marco and I almost got into it because I think either on the one of the sports scientists, Evangelion, came up, and it's like one of those mech. You think you start watching it, you're like, this is a mech anime, and then you realize, like, very distinctly, like 5 episodes in, you're like, this is not a mech anime anymore. There just happens to be mechs like warring around, but it has nothing to do with the actual plot. Yeah, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, I still want mechs to be real, but I know they won't. That video, the Boston Dynamics fake video where there was like the fake humanoid robot. Do you see that one, James?
I don't think so.
It's like they made like a really good, not spoof video. It's like a fake video of like, the big Boston Dynamics big dog, that robot walks. They made like one that looks like a human, and they made like fake testing footage with it. This like Instagram account, Bosstown Dynamics or whatever. And people were like, oh my God, the future's here. They're making Terminators. And like a few experts had to publish like official articles be like, that video's fake. Here's why. Also, you're never going to see human mechs because the human being platform is the stupidest thing ever to fight war. Like it's not miniaturized. It can be knocked off its base. That's not going to happen. So there's like, they're not even working on that.
Yeah. Though they do have all sorts of cool stuff. Every time I see a video from them, I'm always like, what the fuck?
For sure. It's just not humanoids. It's like quadrupedal stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Mark Conway says, Arit from Newcastle, Mike and James. Arit. Oh, and in Arnold's voice, thanks again for your advices last week. Our pleasure. I'm running my modified version of the 5-day male physique template to train at home. Things are going well. Getting great pumps and my performance is increasing along with volume week to week. I'm currently in caloric surplus, and as such, I'm gaining weight consistently each week too. However, I have a few questions about my exercises and moving forward in general. Number one, do you think using a weighted backpack is sensible when performing goblet squats? I performed goblet squats wearing a backpack both front ways and back ways and found they felt quite different, certainly more fatiguing than without a backpack. The backpack certainly limits the number of reps I can do. However, I feel like I'm reaching failure due to general fatigue rather than failure in my legs. I would use 2 dumbbells in a front rack position as you advise in your home training video. However, unfortunately, I have spin lock dumbbells which aren't flat at either end. I like the backpack idea. I prefer backpack to the front to leverage your quads more. I also think you should be trying heel highly elevated, almost sissy squats, and I would try to do myo reps, and then you will feel them limited by your quads. But if you just put on a backpack on your back and just squat with body weight and a flat feet, then you may never really hit your quads as limiting factors.
And you have to get the backpack set up so it's really pulled tightly across your body and it's not just like dumping around all over the place, especially like if you're putting stuff in it, because then it's going to want to fall forward, right? So you got to like tie it up and get it like as securely as you can. Otherwise, you're just going to be spending needless amounts of energy just trying to stabilize the backpack.
100%. Are there any wrist strengthening / warm-up exercises you guys would recommend to help with push-ups? Yes, masturbation. My right wrist gets wrecked when performing push-ups, even in the pristine form outlined in your video. So I use perfect push-up handles to perform deficit push-ups instead. While this eliminates almost all pain, I still feel a bit of wrist discomfort near the end of my chest day. Zero. So you can strengthen your forearm flexors and extensors by doing various wrist curls. I'm just not sure that's the root of your pain.
Yeah.
There's no shame in doing the perfect push-up handles. They're great. And what I would also say is a real good idea is for you to buy a pair of wrist wraps and put those on for when you need them. Like Charlie and I use wrist wraps all the time because powerlifting trashed both of our physiques. So for heavy overhead pressing, heavy incline, all this other stuff, we use wrist wraps, and it's no big deal because it's not like you're going to need them at some point or something.
Yeah, and there's no shame in having exercises that just don't fit your body type. Like if push-ups cause you wrist pain, like it's perfectly okay that's just not a good movement for you, and you can move on to other modified versions or dumbbell bench. And obviously you're working out at home, but like, you could do other things like bench presses. So yeah, it's just one of those movements that doesn't agree with you, and that's fine. Just like some people, like upright row is a perfect example of that. Like some people, shoulder width upright row is great. A lot of people, shoulder width causes incredible pain in like the shoulder or the elbow, right? You move the grip in like a couple inches and now it's like pristine. Whereas like the other person, a couple inches in, causes them pain. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just one of those individualization things.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Last one. Second to last. Following on from my last question, is there a significant difference between using a neutral versus pronated grip when performing push-ups and dumbbell shoulder press? I find a grip somewhere between pronated and neutral, around 45 degrees. Okay. Feels best. I see what he's saying. Feels best on my wrists and shoulders when performing push-ups, and a neutral grip feels best on my shoulders when performing a shoulder press. Does the grip significantly change the activation of chest and deltoids? No, it does so, but it does so at a very small extent, and comfort and ability to get close to actual failure is everything. So if you're not comfortable and that's preventing you from getting close to actual failure, there is no magic grip that's better than what works really well for you. So toss all that out the window, press how is comfortable. Now, if you find more than a few positions that are comfortable, it's great to rotate them every now and again to have variation, but never think you have to do something that's wildly uncomfortable, even if you're trying it for several weeks and you hate it. There is no magic grip. As a matter of fact, we're making a whole lot more of the RP single exercise mistakes and corrections guides, and they seem to be like basically have a template for like there's like 6 or 7 of them that apply to every exercise, like control the eccentric, full range of motion. And one of them is like literally called it like magic grips or magic positions. Like there is no magic foot position to give you big quads on the leg press. There is no magic grip on the bench press to give you big pecs. It all comes down to stimulus to fatigue ratio. Stimulus is, are you feeling the shit in the muscle you're supposed to, and is it getting fucked up? And the fatigue is mostly, are your connective tissues and joints okay with it? And it just has to be an individual thing, James.
Yeah, totally agree.
Cool. Finally, this will be my 3rd massing mount cycle in a row, and I'm not sure whether it'd be best to go for mini cut or traditional cut once I'm back at the gym. I wonder if we have a whole book about how to decide that. I have accumulated, we're just fucking with you. We do actually have a book, Mini Cut Manual, if you've looked into it. I have accumulated a decent amount of weight, and although I'm unable to measure my body fat percentage, I would estimate to be in the 20% region. I was probably around 50% before starting the massing cycle. Historically, I found it easy to burn fat and challenging to gain muscle. In fact, I've had to eat around 3,500 calories per day at 170 pounds just to continue gaining around a pound per week. Hashtag thank you metabolism. I'm glad you hashtagged that because other people will search for it on this document and you will see a sense of community. I'm glad that James was mean-spirited. I don't have to get that joke. Dude, there's a guy who go nameless who comments on a lot of my Instagram posts who after he comments anything, he hashtags like 5 things, rephrasing his comments as clever hashtags. I legitimately, if I read that man died in a fire, I'd be like, there is good in this world.
Like, oh, I feel bad for his family, but not for him.
Not really. I plan to eat at maintenance for the first month back in the gym as per your recommendations. However, would you guys recommend cut-wise after this? I think if you're close to 20%, I would just take a nice 8-week-long cut and get nice and lean and then repeat the because you seem to have figured out how to mass no problem. I would, if you're at 20% to keep looking good and being optimally healthy, I would just do like an 8-week cut after this. James?
Yeah, I would agree. I was going to say, just do like a block of cut and don't worry about the mini cut.
Yeah. It'd be different if you were like, I'm struggling to gain weight. I've barely gained any. I'm still at 13%. I'd be like, okay, keep massing. Right? But at 20% and you seem to successfully be able to do it, even though it's tough, I would say that's a good idea. Bonus question. What are your favorite nighttime snacks? James?
All the shitty, like alternative diet forms of pizza.
You're
like,
fucked up, man.
I love them. I can't get enough. Oh, they're so like awesomely bad. Or yeah, awesomely bad. Like they taste shitty, but they're satisfying. You're like, yeah, pizza, kind of.
For sure. I would have to say that, like, if I was really doing broad strokes, this is something I have like 3 times a year, but chocolate covered almonds.
Ooh, yeah, those are
can't
good.
be around them because I will eat whatever container they're in. I'll just eat the whole container. It's like a positive feedback loop.
You mean like the actual like chocolate covered ones, or just like the powder topping?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. And he says, thank you in advance for answering my multitude of questions. Hope both you and the family, or at least the members you care about, are healthy and thriving. All the best, Mark. Yeah, it's really that last part is really key. So.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
Thank
okay,
you, sir. All right. I think we have one question in YouTube because our apologies. The seminar was posted, or webinar last week was posted very late, but we will make some room for more YouTube questions next time. So this question is a doozy.
Oh boy.
And I will share my screen.
I'm looking at it too. Lean gains. This is the part, my favorite part, we get to creep on Dr. Mike's like YouTube suggestions. Dr. Hoffman.
Oh yeah, there it is. There it is. Jocko Willink. I listened like one of his things, and now I get like spammed with Jocko Willink.
Oh, I know. It's terrible.
He's such a man. He's like, I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, he's like kind of psychotic. I got his book. What's it? The Discipline Equals Freedom book.
Shut up. Fuck you.
It's awesome. It's like the presentation's really nice. It's in like all black and like the lettering is white, and it's basically like it's like the same as 12. He's like the like Marine version of Jordan Peterson, basically. It's the same book. It's essentially the same book.
All right. Potatoes says, hey, docs, I'm patiently waiting for the revised chest guide and wondering if you have anything you could say about chest hypertrophy. Yes, it will be in the revised chest guide.
There's plenty of things we could say.
Also, the original chest guide's pretty good. I follow your programming, volume landmarks, and all that, so I learned a lot on implementation by watching Feather's Journey to Pro.
Hey.
Jared says,
hey.
Really great.
Thank you.
Thank you. He says, everything on me has grown considerably except my chest. I pretty much have the body I want except chest and some more legs. I used to think that when I was 180 pounds, and now I'm 240 and I still hate how I look. I'm just kidding. So does it just come down to time spent lifting? I am late to the game, 40 years old, and only 3 years of dedicated lifting. So because you're 3 years dedicated lifting, you have way more growth ahead of you. I'll tell you that right now. I feel like my time for growth is pretty limited. So just asking if you guys have any advice for old fuck yet young lifter. I train 6 days a week, all body parts twice. Thanks, doc. Yeah, easy recommendation. Lower your volume per session on chest to half of what it is now, switch to training chest 3 times a week, and then slowly titrate your volume up to make sure you're recovering and adapting, that increased frequency alone is almost certainly going to result in some gains. When the new chest guide comes out, you will be able to integrate much more of that stuff. Another one is make sure the exercises you're doing have a good stimulus to fatigue ratio. When you're training chest, you should feel the tension in your chest. You should feel the burn on higher reps. You should be getting a good pump. You should be getting a little bit of chest soreness. If you're not getting any chest DOMs, you're probably understimulating it. A little bit is good. Also, you shouldn't be training chest super, super hard all the time. Chest takes a while to recover sometimes. You should train it hard a few sessions a week. Then you should have, in your tricep training, a little bit of chest work that sort of lets it recover a little bit but doesn't get overstimulated. James, what else you got? A couple tips for chest.
I think those are the really good fundamental ones. Like if you're truly like if you're seeing really great gains across the board and you're not really seeing good gains in your chest, you can always consider doing like a chest specialization phase if it's something that you're really interested in. That's a really good way to actually accrue more like tangible gains on an area that you're not seeing as many gains as you'd like. But that also would mean that everything else is kind of put on the back burner. And with like 3 years of training under your belt, you can still probably benefit from doing a bit more all around training, I would say, at this point. So there's a cost benefit you have to weigh there as like how much is my chest really important to me versus like, well, I could just be probably making all around gains right now if I just train everything and deal with the chest later. So
yeah, 100%. Very good advice. Folks, that's it. That's all we have. James, any announcements?
That's it. So yeah, apologies. Last webinar didn't get posted in time, but we have it posted now. And then this one should hopefully be on time on YouTube. I'm going to do more of James Does Sports videos soon. I got some good feedback and questions from last time. And other than that, not much. I think that's it.
Awesome. All right, folks, thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.